We're down to the last 8 teams and, well, it all kicks off on Friday night, Suncorp Stadium, with the Broncos playing host to the Melbourne Storm. They have a second chance there, the winner going straight through to the prelim. Similar story the following afternoon at Penrith, the Panthers and the Warriors. The winner to go through to the prelim. Second chance for the loser. It is all or nothing, though, for the Sharkies and Roosters Saturday night. Same thing for the Knights and Raiders, what will be a packed-out McDonald Jones Stadium. So let's get into some of these big matchups. Back-to-back weeks, Gus, we get to see the Broncos and the Storm go head-to-head. Are we reading anything? As you mentioned at the top of the show, last week was 2 very different-looking teams to what we're used to. Can we read anything into that?
I think both teams got what they wanted out of last Thursday night. Naturally, they'll be different-looking teams this time. It had to be a little bit of a miracle for them to play each other again a week later, but there was always a possibility. We mentioned that last week. So they took the opportunity not to have to play each other twice. They've decided they'd play those 2 teams last week and their top 2 teams this week. Look, I think the Broncos have performed better on a whole right throughout the season. I think their attack is more dangerous. I still want to see their defence at finals time. It's a long time since they've been here, where the Storm are, they're in finals every year and they've got that finals coach as well. So
that's the thing, isn't it, Gus?
They're the things that'll stand in.
I agree. I think I don't know how I can look past the Broncos this season. They've had the speed they've got, their forward pack, but you just think they haven't been there. They haven't been here before. They've had Reynolds has been there, but the majority of their team hasn't. And this Melbourne Storm team have. They just somehow get it done year in, year out. Like, they've finished top 4 again. And
then all of a sudden they've got a bloke like Ryan Pappenhausen coming back into the side and played the full 80 minutes last week, Al.
Yeah, look, I hope... I don't know if he's going to see what he was last year just quite yet. He's only just coming back, as we know. But look, hopefully for Melbourne, he can bring a bit of X factor to them. And he's a great player, from what we remember. He probably hasn't reached those heights just yet, but I wouldn't be putting too much pressure on him. But having him back in the side adds a little bit of depth and a little bit of X factor to them. So see how they go. But the rest of their team, they've just been there and done it all before. And they're just a hard team to tip against this time of year.
Yeah, the big thing, Suncorp Stadium, I think a lot of teams, other than probably Panthers and this team, Storm, would be a little intimidated about going to Suncorp Stadium, or if they weren't, it would hit them in the face once they got there. You'd be looking at a big crowd there for this particular game. But the Storm won't be. They've kind of been down this road many times before. So too the coach, big name players, and if they get their share of possession and if they can get to the front at any time, then that really pressure tests the Broncos at finals time. They'll know what it's all about.
The other qualifying final, the Warriors, this is a tough one. You've got to come over across the other side of the ditch, go to Penrith and play the minor premiers there. There's a lot of layers to this. Andrew Webster, former assistant to Ivan Cleary, up against his former boss. Nathan idolised Sean Johnson, and all of a sudden they're right.
Nathan was a Warriors fan growing up.
He was as a kid.
I always said if the Warriors could stay in New Zealand, they probably could get to the grand final, I thought, many weeks ago. The fact they've got to travel over to Australia to Penrith against a team who's done it all before many times, I can't see them getting the job done. I think Penrith will be too good. They're just all class, Penrith. They really are. Like we saw the week they had a couple of weeks ago, the way they played last week to win the minor premiership was brilliant. They're just all class. They're so good. Their defence is just unbelievable. The way they move. I love the way their middles defend. We talk about their defence, and we don't really target what position, but the way their middles move, it just gives the edges so much confidence they can go and get their man. They releases them all a second earlier. That's all they need. 1 second earlier, and their centres make their tackles, their wingers make their tackles, their halves make their tackles, all because their middle moves so well.
We saw on the weekend too, Jack Cogger's thrived in that system at Penrith too, Gus.
Yeah, it's plug in, plug out. I mean, when you've got so many good players around you, you only have to work on your role and what role that plays within the team. One of the things at the end of the season, we're doing our own review at the Bulldogs, Panthers, of every team in the competition, have time in possession. They are the team with the most ball in play this year, the most time in possession of any team. Coincidentally, the Bulldogs had the least. So the ladder kind of looked with the teams that were able to dominate possession, and this is where Panthers are so good. They dominate possession, they dominate field position, which helps their defence and helps the speed and the continuity of their defence during the games, because once they get into a flow with their attack, they very rarely make mistakes. The kicking game is so accurate. You are constantly coming off your own line, and they eventually just wear you down. They've really got into this grind mentality, what they call a grind mentality, where they can dominate you field position and possession, and they just wear your will down. And then they get 10 or 12 in front, and you know you're not going to catch them, because their defence is so good. But a lot of the fact with their defence is they dominate possession. They get more ball in their opposition team because they control it better and they control what the sort of football the opposition play. If you're going to beat the Panthers, you've got to try to find a way to break that cycle, to break that rhythm in their game and see whether or not you can get more possession than them. It's a real test of your will. See, the Panthers will respect you. If you keep giving the ball to Panthers at their own end of the field, they'll respect that. And they won't make any mistakes and so they'll get the ball. What they'll do is just try and break you down. You've got to try and break them down. And that's not easy to do when they're so good at what they do.
The coverage of that qualifying final beginning here at 9, just around 3 p.m, right after all the NRLW action happening throughout the day as well. The first of eliminators, we've mentioned it's at Shark Park against Gal's Cronulla side. Sam Walker in this Roosters team, the impact he's starting to have at the back end after a big layoff, once through being dropped, then through injury, Gal. Right time.
Yeah, mate. I said it on this show last week. If the Roosters do get in there, I think there'll be a few teams looking over their shoulder. And who do they run into first week? My Sharky. So, yeah, Tedesco will be rested. He'll be back. But this kid here, he's been outstanding the last 3 weeks. So, look, I was all for him getting dropped at the start of the year. I didn't think he was doing the job. I didn't think he was going well enough. He obviously had a knee injury after that. But since he's come back, I think he's been outstanding. I think he's been really, really good. It's going to be a big game down there. JWH obviously being out, he's a big out for them. He's such a leader of their team. So the Sharks forward pack really need to take to the Roosters forward pack.
It sounds as though Daniel Tupou's out, but they're confident Joe Manu will play. So
Really?
Yeah, Daniel Tupou's struggling apparently. Not quite ruled out yet. Tomorrow the team's a name, but I think
Manu will be right after a hamstring. It's only been 2 weeks.
I think they're going to roll the dice.
Yeah, I suppose they got to. It's a must-win game, yeah.
Where does this one stand amongst the four, Gus, in terms of picking a winner for you this weekend?
I think it's one of the easy ones. I think Roosters will win pretty comfortably in this game, even though it's being played down at Shark Park, the Bermuda Triangle.
Gus, come on.
I think they're just too strong in that finals mentality. I think they're going to be too strong in playing this brand of football. I don't think the Sharks will have it.
Have you ever been wrong twice in a year?
Oh.
Have you been wrong twice in a year?
I've never been wrong once in my life. I thought I was wrong once, I was mistaken.
Tune in next Monday night if the Sharkies win this one, guys.
Can they go on a run, Gus, the Roosters, or are they just making up numbers?
I still didn't see enough the other night. They were too good for South. You could tell in the to and fro of the game, every time there was a break in play, Souths were down on their haunches and Roosters were talking and bubbling and keeping the energy up. They probably knew they only had to contain Cody Walker. Once Blake Taff went off, that was sort of the only other danger in their attacking game that was going to do it. And they swarmed on them. Their energy was really good. There's no doubt that the Roosters are hard fit and they've trained hard right throughout the season. And they're good finals football. It's a good finals football coach and a good finals football team. At the start of the year, they were equal favourites to win the comp. Like I said, they had the best roster in the competition, and they were saying it themselves. How they got down here, I don't know, but now they're there, and it's just 1 week at a time. I think, they can win a couple of games.
All right, then Sunday Arvo footy at its best. McDonald Jones Stadium will be heaving as Newcastle gets a taste of finals footy for the first time, Gal, in a very long time. They're chasing 10 straight wins.
Mate, what a crowd it's going to be out there.
They can't be beaten up there the way they're
I wouldn't think so this week. Not against the Raiders. The Raiders, I can't remember a team who's limped into a semi-final series, done it tougher than the Raiders have. They've got plenty of players out. They had another player suspended on the weekend long term. They're limping in the Raiders. Riggy, the thing about the Raiders, they don't generally beat themselves. Like even on the weekend, they took a Jack Williams try, then a player got sent off for the Sharkies, really took over the game. So they don't beat themselves, the Raiders. They've got a pretty good completion rate. They do play a little bit of an unorthodox style of football. They do a lot of angles, a lot of guys coming back across the ruck, a lot of offloads. So they can get you off the game a little bit if their passes stick and if they start playing the football they can play. But I just think they've limped in too much and they're on fire at the moment. The Knights and up there, obviously there'll be 30,000 Novocastrians screaming the house down. It'll be an unreal atmosphere.
Yeah. Halfway through the season, if you just said the Knights were going to be in the finals and they'd be favourite for their first semi-final, they've had you committed. That's just how far they've come in that time, and they've deservedly so. They'll beat the Raiders. They'll beat them quite comfortably.
I don't know if Jackson Hastings will play. I think
really?
I don't think it'll matter.
Yeah.
The other bloke's been really good. The other bloke's actually more dangerous in his own right with his speed, and he controls the game pretty well. The game revolves around Ponga, Kalen Ponga. If he plays, I think they'll be far too good.
He's got info on Ponga. Will he play?
He'll play. He'll play. It's just
going to be a pain management for Ponga, isn't it?
With an AC, that's
that's a pain management thing. I mean, it doesn't dislocate as we know. It's just more, and he'll get a painkiller. I think he'll be okay.
All right, there you go. Your four finals coming this way, all live, free here on Nine's Wide World of Sports.